Hello, hi, welcome everybody. So we have almost officially entered the fall season. The day that I'm uploading this video will be September 21st, so the day before the first day of fall. So we're practically in the season at this point, and I get to read all of my fall books. Of course, as always, you can read any book at any time of the year, but as a huge fantasy lover and someone who really likes to get in the spirit of the season, I always get back into reading in the fall if I've been taking a break for a while, which I kind of have this summer. And also, I always like to read specific types of books in the fall just because it feels right. So today I'm going to be giving you my fall reading list for this year. So I have, I believe, like 15 or 16 books and letting you all know what I'm excited to read this season, and hopefully you can also discover something new that you want to read. This is going to be my personal TBR, so these are books I haven't read yet, so technically they're not recommendations, but I will be doing a full, like, complete ultimate fall reading list recommendation video coming for you very soon as well. I think that might actually be my next video. So if you are looking for recommendations rather than just like inspiration of things to read, you can look forward to that one. But today is going to be kind of more inspiration for both me and you, hopefully. Fall is just all around the perfect season. It has the best clothing, the best weather, the best activities that you can do outside. It's also the start of the school season, and a lot of people also like to pick up new hobbies and learn new things during the fall. So if you're in the mood to continue learning and learn something new this fall, learning a new language is always a good way to do that, and Lingoda, who is the sponsor for today's video, makes that as easy as possible. Lingoda is a language learning platform that offers classes to help you reach your language learning goals. I've been using them since this summer to try and develop my French skills because I used to speak like a little bit of French and I've lost a lot of it over the years. So it's been really helpful using Lingoda because I'm able to attend actual classes with other people. Each class is run by a teacher, so it's really nice to be able to actually speak to somebody and ask direct questions. It's really nice to just be able to be with other students who are all going along with you on this same journey. It makes me feel like I'm not alone in the process, and it makes trying to learn a language a lot less lonely and a lot more fun. Lingoda is also really useful to me because it's completely flexible. Like, you can pick your entire schedule yourself, and it makes me more motivated to actually take the classes because I can work it into my own schedule. They have 3 different paths that are tailored to your learning goals. They have the flex path, the teams path, and the sprint path, and you can choose the one that fits best for you, whether you want something more flexible, something a bit more structured. So if you're interested in starting your journey on learning a new language, click my link or use my code Clockwork September to save 20 euros when signing up and claim up to 20 free private classes. And without any further ado, let's get into my fall TBR. So starting off, we have a few books I've already started reading, so these are going to be the ones that I'll probably finish first. But first up, we have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. I've been reading this since early summer. I believe I'm like 3 chapters in. I think I'm at the start of chapter 4, so I'm not too far in, but I have gotten like a bit of a start, so I do kind of know what I've gotten myself into now, and I'm really liking it so far. I love everything Ava Reid writes, so I'm not going to be surprised if I end up completely loving this, and I expect to actually. I just haven't had the time to get back around to picking this up, and thankfully now I do have a bit more time, and this is probably going to be the first one I end up finishing. I actually ended up going to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival to go watch some Shakespeare, and one of the plays we watched, my friends and I who went, was Macbeth, and I was so excited because I was also reading Lady Macbeth at the time. I even brought it with me. I'm now even more excited to read this since I've refreshed my memory on that play also. So yeah, I can't wait to pick this up. I know it's just gonna be like a perfect fall read, which is also kind of why I've been putting it off until this season. It just hasn't felt like the right time. But yeah, I cannot wait to get around to this. And I need to buy the finished copy because it's just so beautiful. So once I finish the book and if I end up really loving it, I will definitely be doing that. All right, so next up on my TBR is another book I'm currently in the middle of. Actually, I shouldn't say in the middle. I'm only on like chapter 2, but I have already started it. This also could be the next one I finish depending on my mood. It's either going to be this or Lady Macbeth, but I am so excited to read this book, and that is The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. If you don't know, and I don't know how you wouldn't know if you follow me literally anywhere else, I'm obsessed with Interview with the Vampire, the TV series, like utterly obsessed. It has consumed my entire being, and I quite literally don't think about anything else at this point. So I watched the series. I'd already seen the movie years ago. I rewatched the movie. I've rewatched the show like 3 times at this point. And then I was like, you know what? It's time to read the books because I have to. There's nowhere else to go from here. We got to start with the books now. So I started reading the books. I read the first one and I really liked it. I had a good time with it. It's not the show, it's not the movie. I don't expect it to be, and that's completely fine. It's its own entity. And I really just did have a good time with it. I didn't actually think I'd like it that much, but I did. And I now have to read the second one, in part just because I really want to and I need the context for everything, but also because I want to do a video, two videos. One, I'm planning a vampire reading recommendation list because I miss vampires. I need to return to my roots. That's what this has made me realize. I'm a vampire girl at heart and I always have been. Twilight did things to me when I was 12. So you can take the girl out of the vampire, but you cannot take the vampire out of the girl. So planning to do a video like that, but also because I'm planning on making a video comparing the book to the movie and the show. So I wanted to make sure I had as much context as I could possibly have for the show, because the show, season 2 especially, also goes into some of the vampire Lestat storyline as well. Not too much of it, but a little bit of it. So I wanted that context before I make that video. So this is also to prepare for that video, but also because I really just want to read it. Anyway, I'm excited. I'm literally just at the beginning, so not much has happened yet, but I cannot wait to get into Lestat's backstory, to get more of his story, to understand him a bit more, and I'm so excited. I do plan to read some more of the books in the series as well. I don't know how many more. It depends on how the experience with this one goes, but definitely at least the next one, which I believe is Queen of the Damned. So I'll definitely read the first 3. We'll see what happens after that. And finally, the last book that I am currently reading that is on my reading list is actually another vampire book, and that is Carmela, a classic novel that I have wanted to read for a very long time. I've just heard nothing but praise about this book since my Tumblr days, circa like 2013, when everyone was obsessed with this, at least on my dashboard timeline. Was it called a dashboard? It's been too long. But within my circle of people on Tumblr that I've followed, everyone was like super into this book and I've wanted to read it since then. And it's also just such a classic, iconic gothic vampire novel. So I feel like it's required reading for me at this point, and I really, really want to see what I think of it. So I am enjoying my time so far. I will fully update once I finish it and let you know my final thoughts. If it makes it onto my list of vampire recommendation books, you'll know that it's fully Hannah approved, but so far I think that it will be, and I'm excited to finish this one up. Next on my list is a book that I have been so excited to read since I heard about its publication, and I think it just came out. So I don't have a copy yet, but it is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. I literally don't know anything about this except that it's adult romance fantasy with like a sapphic romance. That's all I know. And it's written by Alison Saft, who's written multiple books that I really, really liked. So I am so excited to read this. The cover art is stunning, both the US edition and the UK edition. I think I like the UK edition more, but I honestly cannot decide because I like both of them so much. So depending on how much I end up liking the book, we could end up with 2 copies of it. Who knows? This just feels like the perfect fall eerie kind of read, and that's exactly what I want this season. So hopefully this one doesn't end up disappointing and I can add it to my fall reading recommendation list. Next on my TBR is a book that I actually picked up from a used bookstore recently, shockingly enough, and that is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I say surprisingly enough because this is a brand new book. It like just came out this year, and I don't even think it came out that long ago, like maybe max a couple months ago, but it's like very new, and I found it at the used bookstore. Maybe someone had gotten an early copy and they returned it or something, but this was very, very inexpensive. Like, I don't know, yeah, $27, $28 is the regular US hardcover price. I bought this for like $8. Which is kind of crazy, but I've been wanting to read it for a really long time, and I was so excited that I found it at the bookstore because I've read a couple of books by T. Kingfisher before and I liked both of them, but they've mostly been kind of like middling books for me. Not bad, and one of them I definitely liked more than the other, but just not my favorites. So hopefully this one ends up being one I really, really end up loving. I love, love, love the cover art. I really don't know why this was on such like a deep discount because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it and it's actually literally brand new. So I think I just got really lucky, but I'll take it. So yeah, I'm very excited to read this. I hope I end up really loving it. All I ever want, literally all I ever want for fall, or just all year round really, is just a really good standalone fantasy or something like gothic horror, and that's it. Like one of those. Give me one of those and I will be happy. And this feels like it has the potential to be a fantastic standalone fantasy. So if you've read this, let me know what your thoughts are on it, but I am very excited to dive in. Next up, continuing on my list, we have 2 more vampire novels actually, because like I said, planning a vampire video. So the next one is one that I've been wanting to read ever since I heard about its release. I think I talked about this in a video a little while ago, but that is This Ravenous Fate. This is a vampire novel set in the 1920s with like a sapphic enemies to lovers kind of romance from what I understand about it, and it just sounds so good. Every like fan art I have seen of this book makes me want to read it even more. After I finish Carmela and The Vampire Lestat and Lady Macbeth, I think this is going to be the next one I pick up because it's just like really calling to me at this moment. And I just really have a feeling I'm going to love this book. So very excited about this one. Oh, actually I have 3 vampire novels. So second to last vampire novel on my fall reading list is Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is another one I have technically started. I have the audiobook for this one, so I started listening to it, but I'm at the very beginning, so I'm not even counting it as starting it yet. I absolutely loved Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which I read earlier this year, and I just needed to pick up more books by her, and I found out that she has a book with vampires, and I was like, oh, I need to read that like yesterday. So that is why this is on this list. I'm super excited about this. I literally haven't heard a word about this, which makes me really excited because I really love going into books without knowing a single thing, without having any expectations. And that's how I feel about this one right now. I don't know what to expect other than I do really love her writing and her storytelling, so I'm expecting that to be good, but I don't really know what to expect from the story itself. So yeah, I'm very excited to dive into this, and I really hope that I end up loving it as much as Mexican Gothic, if not more. And then my last vampire book on my fall reading list is Fledgling by Octavia Butler. When I found out that the Octavia Butler had a vampire novel, I was like, I have to read that. I know I'm gonna like it. It's gonna be so good. It's gonna be one of the best books I've ever read, probably, and I still believe that it will be. I'm just so excited to read this. I know it's probably gonna be really dark and also really sad, but that's what I want from my vampire fiction, so I cannot wait. This is another one I literally don't know anything about. I just was looking up her books at one point and I found out that it had vampires in it, and I was like, give it to me now. So yes, I definitely will be picking this one up this fall. But then staying on theme with Octavia Butler, another book by her that I want to read this fall is Parable of the Talents, which is the sequel to Parable of the Sower, which I read a couple years ago, and as you all know, that's like one of my favorite books I've ever read now. I did also start this one earlier this year. I read like 2 chapters maybe, and then just didn't have time to continue. The thing with this was that it was so good right off the bat that I was like, oh, no, I need time to be sucked into this because I'm not gonna be able to do anything else. That's why I ended up putting this off, but this will definitely be read this fall. I can't put it off anymore. I need to read it. It's going to change my life. I already know. So yes, this is very high up on the list. Next on my list is definitely one of my most anticipated releases for the entire year. And I don't think I've mentioned this in other videos because I think I forget every single time, and I don't know why, because this is probably like number 1 or 2 most anticipated release for the whole year. And that is of course Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. M.L. Rio is the author of one of my favorite books of all time, If We Were Villains, which I read a couple years ago now, and it has consumed me entirely. And this is her second book, and oh my god, I cannot express how excited I am to read this. I literally don't know anything about it. I cannot tell you the synopsis. I can't tell you generally what it's about. It seems like it's gonna be kind of like scary, maybe gothic, maybe a little bit of horror. I don't know. I don't want to know. I literally don't want to know. I want to go into this with no expectations whatsoever. It looks beautiful. I love the cover art. I'm seeing some mushrooms, so I'm gonna assume that we're leaning into the like mushroom gothic horror genre that's been really big. So many horror books have mushrooms as like the horror, which is really funny to me, and I just really like that as a theme actually. So if that's what we're going with, great, I'm so excited. But honestly, I'll take anything. I love her writing, so I can't wait to see how this goes. I really hope it lives up to my expectations. Yes, I have very high expectations. Maybe that's not for the best, but nonetheless, I have them. So hopefully I end up really loving this, but I cannot emphasize just how excited I am for this book to come out. Okay, so next on my TBR, I have the single fantasy, horror, gothic, like scary kind of book on my list. The only one that's not like that. It's actually just plain old literary fiction. But I've really wanted to read this book for so long, and this author just feels right to read in the fall, and that is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. This is one of the only Fredrik Backman books that I did not own a physical copy of. I haven't even read all of them. It's just that the publisher used to send me his new book like every single time it would come out, which is why I had them all. But for some reason I just never had this one. Maybe it came out earlier or something. But this has been been really high up on my reading list for a very long time, and I have a feeling that I'm really going to love this. So yeah, if I want something that's like maybe not as disturbing as some of the other books that I have on my TBR for this fall, this will definitely be the one that I reach for, but I'm very excited to see what I think of this. Okay, and then actually I technically do have another literary fiction book, although I'm not exactly sure which genre this book is categorized into. When I've looked it up, it says it's literary fiction, but I've also seen it on horror lists, or maybe I've just seen Toni Morrison on horror lists before, but it just felt like the proper book to read in fall based on the way people talk about it. That is, of course, none other than Sula by Toni Morrison. I've had this book on my shelf for literally like 8 years or something like that. I won it in a raffle at my college, and I've wanted to read it for a really long time, but I just have never gotten around to it. Again, I think if I'm looking for something that's maybe a little bit less fantastical or magical, I'll reach for this or Anxious People if I want something that's more contemporary literary fiction. So yeah, I'm very excited to read this. I know it's a really beloved classic, and that's part of why I want to read it, but I also just think I'm really going to enjoy it because I love Toni Morrison as a writer. I've never actually read any of her books, but I've read like a lot of her essays and like articles and stuff like that. So yeah, I just have a very strong feeling that I'm going to end up loving this, and it could end up becoming a favorite classic. Next is another new release coming out this year, which is in competition for my #1 most anticipated release for the year, and that is of course Air by Sabaa Tahir. This is the first book in a new series by Sabaa Tahir, set in the same universe as the Ember and the Ashes series. I believe it takes place after that series, and we don't follow the same characters, but some of those characters might make appearances, so we're following a different cast of characters this time around. Nonetheless, I am so excited for this book. I love An Ember in the Ashes. That is literally one of my favorite series of all time, so you can imagine how excited I am for this to come out. I literally already have my copy pre-ordered. I need it to arrive at my door the day it's released. I will be reading it the day it's released. That is how excited I am. So yes, this is high top priority for me for my fall reading list. It will be read. All right, moving right along. The next one on my TBR is actually a short story collection. This was on my list already, but recommended to me by my sister because she read a specific story and she was like, you have to read this, it's really good. And so I decided to pick up a copy, and that is Ghost Roots. I first wanted to read this because I saw the cover, and I don't know what it is about it, but something about this really drew me in. I absolutely love it. So then when my sister told me she was reading it and she recommended it, I was like, okay, sold. I have to buy a copy. And I can't remember specifically which story it is. I believe it's, yes, it's The Hollow that she told me to read, so I'm very excited to get around to that. I just love a good short story collection. This feels like something that's gonna be perfect for this fall. Something about reading short story collections in the fall, I think, always reminds me of reading those scary stories to tell in the dark books. When I was a kid, I used to go to the library all the time after school, and my friend and I would pick out a scary stories to tell in the dark book, and we'd read one of the stories in the library to each other, and it was always so much fun. And I think that's the thing about short story collections that make me feel like they belong in the fall. Even if they're not scary, even if they're not supposed to be like horror or anything like that, there's something about that that just always makes me feel really nostalgic. So yeah, I'm very excited. I really think that this is going to be a great read, and hopefully it ends up becoming a new favorite. I have one final book on my fall TBR, which is a bit ambitious. The whole TBR is a bit ambitious. I don't know that I'm going to get through every single one of these books as much as I would love to. We'll see how motivated I am to read this fall, but I do really want to read all of them, including this one, which is Blood Over Bright Heaven. This is a dark academia fantasy novel where I believe the magic system is based on like alchemy. I don't really know anything else about it. I just know it's written by M.L. Wang, who's a pretty beloved author. I believe that they've mostly just self-published their books. I think this was also self-published before it was picked up by a traditional publisher too, but I've just heard nothing but good things about this book and The Sword of Kaigen, which is their other book, and people have recommended them to me countless times. So I'm very excited to dive into this and see what I think of it. But yeah, again, hoping that this ends up becoming something I really love and a book that I can recommend too. But we'll see. We'll see if I get around to it. It doesn't come out until October 29th, so it won't be out for most people until then, but I would like to get around to it, hopefully before Halloween. But there you all have it. That is it for my fall TBR. I am also planning to do a reading 5 scary books video to see if they scare me, kind of like those experiment videos that I've done in the past, because I just think that would be a lot of fun to do in October near Halloween. So if you do have any scary, and I mean like actually scary, book recommendations for me, please do let me know. I'd be very, very curious to check them out. I'm trying to curate my list. Whatever 5 books end up being in that video, or maybe I'll do fewer than 5, but whatever books end up being in that video will also be added to this TBR. So again, like I said, it's kind of ambitious, but we'll see what I get through. It's just kind of like a general vibe I've set for myself of what I want to reach for in the coming season. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in today's video and what your thoughts were on them. And also let me know what are a couple of your top books that you plan to read this fall. If you'd like to follow me on any of my social media, all of my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!